Well, turn the dial, listen up. This 80s crew. Come on, feel the vibe. We're bringing something new. Got movie on mind, but bring us to unfold. Got movies on the mind, stories to unfold. But let's talk, let's try. This is where the magic starts.
And good morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. This is Harrison Smith with another episode of Cynema for the time being. We'll see how this goes and if there's anything really to talk about. But today I think there is, and it's kind of continuing with this two-part series. So consider this kind of a quasi-third part, or maybe an addendum to my AI villain origin story. So let's just get right down to it. Cynicism, that's what cinema is all about, and the ability to do something great and simply choosing not to. And I'm going to go back today a long time ago, actually, to Star Trek Generations. And you can listen to my previous podcast on that and the Star Trek franchise and why Star Trek Generations, maybe out of all of the Star Trek films, and that includes The Next Generation, might be the most cynical installment of that franchise. And the reason why is because they did end the original series cast quite tastefully. They all signed off. They really went off into the sunset kind of thing, into the starlight, and they literally signed their signatures for the end credits. And it was passing the torch on to the next generation by, instead of saying where no man has gone before, no one has gone before, which is what the Next Generation show opened up with. So be it. They knew there's still money in this. And William Shatner's around as well, and Leonard Nimoy's around, so why don't we use the old cast and have them pass the torch over to the new cast and somehow get these two casts together. Now, to be fair, they had done this. They had done this previously with Dr. McCoy in the pilot episode of The Next Generation, and they did it with Scotty, and they did it with Spock. So we've had our fanboy nostalgia crossovers, there is no doubt. But on the big screen, we need to launch The Next Generation. And I never felt that any of the Next Generation movies were all that great. I would say probably, and not even arguably, the best one is First Contact. Simply because you have the Borg, and it's probably the most entertaining of all the Star Trek Next Generation films. Otherwise, I felt they were kind of a dud. Now, I understand why people like the Next Generation TV series. It was extremely well written, well acted, all of that stuff. But I'm still leaning towards Star Trek, the feature films for me, and mostly Captain Kirk. And I'm going to explain quickly why and what the point of this podcast is and what it has to do with AI. I was never a huge Star Trek fan growing up. I remember as a boy it being in syndication, but I wasn't really a space kid. I was more of a big monsters kind of guy. So science fiction for me was giant bugs or giant lizards and radioactive monsters and kaiju. For Star Trek, I caught the show a number of times. I got it. And as I got older, I knew who Leonard Nimoy was. I knew who William Shatner was. I even had action figures and the Enterprise play set. But I can't really say, I got those for Christmas, but I didn't ask for them. I can't really say I was a monster fan of the original TV series. And I was told by my high school principal one time that I reminded him of Captain Kirk from the movies and from the TV show. He apparently was a Trekkie, Trekker fan, whatever you want to call it. And I saw the original 1979 motion picture with a friend in 6th grade, and I went in thinking this was going to be Star Wars. It was going to be exciting, and I'm not kidding. I literally, and I'm using that word properly, I literally fell asleep in that movie for at least 7 minutes. It might have been 10. And when I woke up, I felt like I had missed nothing. My friend said, oh, well, this happened. It's like, oh, well, that kind of was happening when I nodded off. Over the years, I've grown to appreciate the motion picture for what it is and its cerebral qualities, and it's far from a bad movie. But let's face it, The Wrath of Khan is really the film that saved the Star Trek movie franchise. And The Wrath of Khan is definitely, it's the Empire Strikes Back of that franchise. It's the best movie out of all of them. And I know someone's like, oh, what about the one with the whales? You know what I'm talking about. It's Wrath of Khan that set the tone, and it especially set the tone for growing old and dying and what life really means and what matters in life. And we all know how Star Trek II ended, and of course we had the search for Spock, which brought him back. I get all of that. I didn't watch Star Trek II in the movies. I saw it on video. And that was when I was a senior, I believe, in high school. And one night after a big party, everybody had passed out, and this movie, this cassette, I think it was a beta, was sitting on top of the VCR, and I'm like, well, I never saw it. I keep hearing it's good, and my principal wants me to see it. Okay, I'll watch it. By the end of the movie, I'm crying, and it was for a number of reasons. I always felt time was passing, and I really wanted to make a mark with my life. And if you read my book, I Live the 80s, that's what it's all about. It's all about becoming something, and even in high school. On top of it, if you also read my book, you'll know that I lost a very close friend just 2 years earlier. And so all of these emotions washed over me while watching this movie, with a conclusion that I really didn't know. There weren't spoilers back then. I had heard that Spock had died, but I didn't even know if that was true. And at that point, I didn't even really care. After watching that movie, I cared. And then I was working at the movie theater as an usher, and I saw Star Trek III in the movie theater. So for me, I kind of acclimated into the Star Trek series, and I can't say I became a huge fan. I wouldn't go to a Star Trek convention. I don't really care if I ever got William Shatner's autograph or anybody's autograph. I just enjoyed the film. So let's just leave it at that. And I saw all of them subsequently in the theaters, even Star Trek V, which is a noble effort in some ways and had some pretty cool things in it, but overall it was a mess. And then in the sixth film, they signed off with The Undiscovered Country, and it was a classy send-off for the original series characters. So this is where I pick up. Star Trek Generations, technically Star Trek VII, is nothing more than a cynical cash grab. And again, listen to my previous podcast. I'll list the link with this one. And it's just, I hated it. Especially, it's not even that, oh, they killed off Captain Kirk. That's how you killed him off? You threw him off a fucking bridge? And most of all, with a plot line that, why are we going back to Viridian 3? Why don't you just go back to where you met Soren when he beamed over onto the Enterprise and end it all right there? It was stupid. It was sloppy. And most of all, Kirk trapped in the Nexus. Don't you think if the Nexus is able to take you anywhere you want or grant whatever desire or passion it is, don't you think Kirk would want to see his son? That's what drove him since Star Trek II. And when they killed him in 3, even by 6, David's death had made a huge impact on Kirk and his choices and his decisions, and eventually even his rehabilitation in his attitude toward the Klingon Empire. David is nowhere to be found. Instead, in Generations, we have some naked chick named Antonia, whom we've never heard about throughout the entire time Star Trek has existed. And somehow he wants to go back in this cabin and live with her, blah, 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 blah. Or he's going to go off to Star Trek. It's so dumb. It's just so bad. And it's so sloppy. And you could tell that people just didn't give a shit in writing it. And Leonard Nimoy, when he was given the script, and this is all in my previous podcast, turned the script down. He said, no, I'm not directing this. They wanted him to direct it. And he said, no, this script, I remember a line that he said, the script is going into production where the rewrites should begin. And he was 100% right. And in hindsight, after the movie was released, the producers even admitted that Nimoy was correct. And he wisely declined to be in it, and he declined to direct it. That's why you have Chekhov in the opening of Star Trek Generations. That was supposed to be either Spock or it was supposed to be McCoy. Scotty was supposed to be Spock, and McCoy was supposed to be who Chekhov took over for. Now, DeForest Kelley had health issues by that point, but also he felt the same thing. And Nimoy said, Spock is just back to be Spock. You're giving him nothing to do. No, he declined wisely. And of course, we know how Generations ended. So Harrison, what does this have to do with your episode and AI? Well, just a couple days ago, they released a short film through the Gene Roddenberry archive, and it's called Unification. And you can find it on the web. I'll provide a link in this. But it's called 765874, which is the start date, and it's called Unification. And what it does, it's probably 8 minutes, somewhere there. It's a little under 10 minutes. They use a hybrid of actors, CGI, and AI to recreate Captain Kirk, William Shatner, pretty much how he was at the end of Generations. And it picks up where obviously Spock has done something. Now, we know in the 3rd season of Picard that we do see that James T. Kirk's body is in stasis. We know that for a fact. So is Kirk really dead? We don't know. And this short film could jive with that because there are a couple of things that make sense here. So bear with me, and I'm going to get to my point on all of this. So Unification picks up, we see Spock on Veridian 3. We know that Spock must have retrieved Kirk's body, very much how Kirk saves Spock. And whether he could bring Kirk back or not, I think Spock is responsible for getting Kirk's body into stasis where we see it in Picard. So in this cryo chamber kind of thing. We never see the body, we just see like a hologram of his skeleton, something like that. It looks like an MRI scan, PET scan, whatever. Anyway, technically Kirk is probably not dead after Generations. And the reason why is a lot of people felt compelled to fix that big royal fuck up. And that's why. And that's what happens when you have major studios that have become so lazy and so cynical that they're not even out to provide fan service anymore. They're just out to cash in. And that's what Generations was. So this new short, which is out, basically picks up with Kirk. It is likely that we are following Kirk's soul. That's how I'm interpreting it. And it leads him through a cast of characters, including Saavik, played by Robin Curtis. She reprises her role. Sarek is there as well, too. Looks like he's back. And we don't see David. I don't know why everybody is ignoring Merritt Buttrick's David, but I would think Kirk would want to see David if he's passing over into the afterlife. So again, that's my only quibble with this. And then Kirk finds his way facing his former self, his middle-aged self, and then his present self. He finds himself at the deathbed of Spock, where, by the way, no words are spoken throughout this entire short. It's all conveyed through emotion. And Kirk basically holds Spock's hand while he's dying. And he sees his friend over to the other side. They are unified once again. Now, what's the point of all of this? Watch it yourself. See what you think. I loved it because here's why. It gave the story conclusion and the heart that Generations should have given us. And it didn't. Generations is nothing more than an expensive TV episode. That's all it is. And again, sloppily written and lazily written. And it was lazily directed. It was not a good Star Trek entry. But it tries to pretend it is, because you've got William Shatner and he's meeting Picard, and you've got an all-star cast, and you've got Malcolm McDowell, who's quite a good villain. However, you got a really dumb plot with the Nexus, and it's just all stupid, and most of it, unforgivably, it is lazy. The AI recreates William Shatner perfectly. There is a flesh and blood actor who plays Shatner in it. However, it is all done in AI. Everything is pretty much rendered except for Saavik. That's very clearly Robin Curtis in makeup and wardrobe. However, most of this, I would say 85 to 90% of this is AI and CGI driven. And you know what? That's okay, because that's what you fucking get, Hollywood. That's what you get. You're lamenting that, oh, AI is going to take over and it's going to kill jobs. You created this monster. And that's exactly what I said in my last 2 previous episodes on AI. If the lazy studios are not going to give us the good stories and the good satisfaction, I guess, of watching these things and just cranking out lazy content, well, this is what's going to happen. What's going to happen is people are going to take this technology and they're going to use it for themselves. And they're going to create the things that people really want to see. They're going to break the monopoly of the studios over entertainment. We had to take generations because there was nobody else making any kind of Star Trek content, and there weren't fan films at the time, and if there were, they were crappy VHS things, and there was no internet to see them anyway. So now we've got a distribution platform, we've got easily accessible, democratized technology. Yeah, this is what's going to happen, Hollywood. And Ben Affleck just a couple days ago said, oh, AI will never be able to give the heart of Shakespeare or the passion of actors. Fuck you, Ben. This little short did that. This little short, this 8 minutes of AI and CGI and some live action delivered more heart and more emotion without a single line of dialogue and passion and caring than every Star Trek film from generations on. And that even includes the reboot by J.J. Abrams, which had some heart until they fucked all that up with Into Darkness. And again, you can hear previous episodes on that and my opinions on that. This is what I'm talking about with the importance of AI. And this is what generates AI villains. Because somebody said, we can do this. We can go back and fix these errors. Now, I'm not talking about the same thing as going back and making the terrible looking shark in Jaws: The Revenge look any more real with CGI. No, it's still a shit movie, whether the shark looks great or not, because there's no fucking story, because there really is no script. It's a terrible motion picture. And again, if you listen back to my very first and second episodes of this podcast, I fully explain why Jaws: The Revenge is not a motion picture. It's not a movie. It's a tax write-off. And Generations, in that same vein, is a cynical cash grab. And it went on from there. And even the Picard stuff, the Picard series, yeah, it's got some heart here and there, but it does smack of nothing more than fan service and a cash grab. That's what it feels like. Because now, look at the cast on Picard. They're all back. It's really just a rebooted Next Generation. That's all it is. It isn't about really the further adventures of Captain Picard, but we can go on that forever. My point is, there are more AI villains coming, and you don't have to like it. And I am an indie filmmaker, and if you don't know that by now, I don't know why you're listening to my podcast. But I am embracing AI, and I am moving forward because I want to be on the right side of history. And that's what's happening. And someone else thought the same. And that's why we have Unification. It's not perfect. It's not 100% human realistic yet, but I'll tell you what, it's goddamn close. It's really close. And it's close enough that it brought tears to my eyes. And it gave me that feeling of not just nostalgia, but human warmth. Because all it is about the love of two friends. And that's more than the last how many Hollywood motion pictures in this franchise could deliver. So you tell me which is worse, using this new technology to create stuff with heart, even though you'll say, well, it's stealing, it's lifting, it's cobbling together, it's lazy, whatever you want to do. I'll tell you what, fucking Generations is lazy. So go back and tell me what's the difference. That was all done in real time. That was all done with real actors and flesh and blood actors and miniatures and before CGI and green screen took over. And it's still lazy. And it's still terrible. And it's not good. So I don't know what a lot of you are complaining about. Because again, I referenced this in my previous episode. Go look at the last 10 minutes of The Flash. Go look at pretty much all the Marvel movies and the DC movies, and green screen, AI, CGI, You're already watching it anyway. That's what I'm trying to say here. Take a look at Unification. The link is provided. Go back and listen to my previous episode on Generations. Link is provided. And tell me, how is what they did for Unification a crime? Tell me how what they did is so awful, lazy, cynical, stealing. You tell me, because I can argue the same for regularly made movies and studio pictures. So technically, this is my third installment of my AI villain origin story. So take it for what it is. Go back and listen to those 2 episodes as well, too. However, AI is here, and it's only going to expand, and Ben Affleck is on the wrong side of history. This is Harrison Smith. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to hearing your feedback. Take care.
Turn the dial, listen up, this 80s crew. Come on, feel the vibe. We're bringing something new. The out movie loves mine, but bringing us to